Hello everybody, this is General Yanis, and today in General Yanis Tactics, the Warhammer 40k channel with an early touch and the in-depth math hammer analysis, we will be looking at the Thousand Sons and the Helbrute of the Thousand Sons Codex, reviewing this in-depth, and probably the Thousand Sons Helbrute is it the best in the 40k world right now. So with no further ado, let's get started. So today is the 5th of October. I'm preparing actually to try a Thousand Suns, a 1,000-point game. That will be quite interesting to try something to play a bit a new, let's say, army and have a practice game. So as I said, today we'll be looking at the Thousand Sons Helbrute. We'll be looking at the stats and the weapons, the damage output, and the multitude of configurations that we can have with the Helbrute, and then looking at the durability, where the 5+ invul save that Arcana Astartes units get in the Thousand Sons Codex basically transform the Helbrute and make it more durable, comparing it to other units, and then looking at buffs and combos. As being a core unit, it can be buffed quite considerably, and also a bit thinking, could it could it do something and become like a mini contemptor? So here are, just for reference, I have 4 Helbrutes from my Death Guard army that I can't really find any room in my Death Guard list. I think the Helbrute with no invul is really dying easily if there are heavy weapons on the table. So I'm a bit thinking if maybe the Changer of Ways would change some of those guys to be more like a Thousand Sons Helbrute. So let's take a look on the Thousand Sons Helbrute. So let's start with the base stats and the weapons. The Helbrute is a model with a base cost of 115 points. It has only a 6-inch movement. This was reduced like Death Guard, only 6-inch movement, 3+ weapon skill, 3+ ballistic skill, 6 strength, toughness 7, 8 wounds, 5 attacks, leadership 8, 3+ save, and then as in Thousand Sons Detachment, a Thousand Sons Helbrute gets the 5+ invul save because it has the Arcana Astartes keyword. If we look at the keywords, we have the vehicle, it's a core, this is quite important, Helbrute, and then it also is part of a great cult. All Helbrutes have a monstrous resilience, so this means that each time an attack is allocated, you reduce the damage characteristic of that attack to a minimum of 1 by 1. So basically, it's like a disgusting resilience. So therefore it's quite interesting, and it's quite durable with a 5+ invul and -1 to incoming damage. It has an explosion when it dies with a 3-inch aura for 1 mortal wound on a 6. And it has the frenzy ability. This is quite nice, that each time you will be able to reroll wound rolls of 1 if the Helbrute has taken damage. So if it has 7 wounds or less, you automatically become better at shooting and making the attack. So this of course will help a slightly wounded Helbrute, and of course with 8 wounds it doesn't have a degrading profile. So it's a weapon dreadnought. It's a bit slow with a 6-inch move, but with it has crucially the invul save that the Death Guard Helbrute so desperately is lacking. Looking at the weapon options, we have extensive weapon options for the Helbrutes. So basically, the Helbrute having 2 arms. On the one arm, we have mainly shooty options. So we have the MultiMelta as a quite useful option. This costs 5 points more, bringing the Helbrute up to 120 points. It's a heavy 2, 24-inch with a Melta profile, strength 8, AP-4 damage D6, which becomes D6 plus 2 at half range. So an anti-vehicle, anti-elite infantry weapon, but in 24-inch and at 12-inch it becomes more lethal with D6 plus 2 damage. The other options are the Twin Heavy Bolter, which is more anti-infantry, anti-marine type of weapon, but it costs a bit more. It has a longer range, 6 shots, strength 5, AP-1, damage 2, so not so good against vehicles. We have the Reaper autocannon, not very a bit lackluster. 4 shots, like basically a Death Guard Blight Lord. Then we have the twin las cannon for a bit more anti-vehicle, longer range, but a quite expensive, 20 points more, so 135 as a minimum to bring the twin las cannon here. Also, it has the Helbrute plasma cannon. This can be taken for 0 points. So it's a heavy D3, a blast weapon, 36-inch range, strength 8, AP -3, and damage 3. So all those you can select, one of those, or you can replace all the shooty weapons basically with another Helbrute Fist, melee weapon with strength ×2, basically becoming a strength 12, AP -3 and damage 3. So a quite potent, let's say, melee weapon. If we look at the weapon choices for the other arm, the standard is the Helbrute Fist. And here we have a lot of melee options, different melee options, but we can also add the missile launcher here as a shooty weapon, as you can see on this image here. As I said, the Helbrute Fist is the standard weapon, which is an excellent melee weapon. The Helbrute Hammer has the same strength, better AP, and a D6 damage, but it's -1 to hit, and not as good as the Helbrute Fist. The Power Scourge gives strength +1, AP -2, damage 2. You can do 3 extra attacks with this weapon, and it's basically a strength 7 weapon. The missile launcher, as an alternative, if you want to have only a shooty platform, is the option for this arm, and here you have the frag missiles, D6 blast, strength 4, AP 0, damage 1, and the crack missile, 1 shot, 48-inch, strength 8, AP -2, damage D6. You can also add a heavy flamer to the fists for more point cost. You can also add the Inferno Combi Bolter to the fists for 5 points more. The Inferno Combi Bolter, of course, better than the standard Combi Bolter that Death Guard has access to. So basically, rapid fire 2, strength 4, AP -2, damage 1. The heavy flamer, D6 auto hit weapon, strength 5, AP -1, damage 1. So as we can see, we have a lot of options. One arm, as I said, mostly ranged options. The other one has mostly melee options. You can build melee only. You can have the fist here and then a selection of the melee weapon here. If you have 2 fists, you get 1 additional attack, which is not super great, let's say. Or you can also make a ranged shooty focused unit. So here you can select what you want of these weapons. On this side you put the missile, then you have let's say the most shooty option. Flamer and combi bolters can be added to the fists to make a medium ranged and melee build, and you can make let's say a shooty weapon here like a Melta and a fist here with some add here to make this mixed role and more medium ranged unit. Now looking at the long range weapon options, the shooty weapons on the one arm, we are comparing those at 24-inch shooting, point corrected for 100 points of the Helbrute. Here we have the blue is the MultiMelta, the Reaper autocannon, the Helbrute plasma cannon, the twin heavy bolter, and the twin las cannon. We see that the MultiMelta overall is the let's say the best overall weapon and gives you some good damage output against the vehicles with no invul saves. The twin heavy bolter, the green one, you see it has a good anti-space marine type of damage output, but of course not so good against vehicles, but better against let's say infantry and horde type enemies. The twin heavy bolter is a good option, but I would argue that there are a lot of other units that can do this. So the rubrics, the Scarabocol Terminators, they have good already. Their bolters are already good at doing this. The twin las cannon, the dark blue, is not as good as the MultiMelta. You have the better range, but it's a bit expensive at 20 points per point. You are not getting your benefit towards the MultiMelta. And then the Helbrute plasma cannon, the light blue, it's also quite good, and that's yeah, it's a cheaper option than the MultiMelta. It has a bit better range. That could be interesting. It could also, if you hit once, you can get a mortal wound on your Helbrute, then it will be able to give itself the ability to have the frenzy, the re-rolling ones. The Reaper autocannon is the only one that really stands out as a bad alternative. No point. It's quite lackluster. So if you don't want to spend the points, take the plasma cannon. If you want, MultiMelta seems to be the best option overall. Twin heavy bolter is, as I said, infantry, but probably not needed as much. Twin las cannon, a bit too expensive in my opinion. And here we have on the other arm, the shooty option, we have the missile launcher, not point corrected here. Here we can see if we use the crack missile and the frag missiles, we see that for most targets, shooting one crack missile is the better option against elite targets. But of course, if we're shooting something like cultists or harlequins or something like that, then we just need high volume of fire. Then the frag missile, especially with the blast, comes in handy. And here we have the, let's say, the death card targets over here. Here are the General Yanis 31 targets I'm typically simulating. Looking at the melee weapon options and comparing those as a baseline, here we have the Helbrute Fist, the dark blue, the Helbrute Hammer, the orange, and the Scourge is the gray. So here we can see that the best, let's say, melee option is the Fist. The Fist is better than the Hammer with a -1/+2 hit, and the Scourge is more an anti-infantry, not so good against heavy targets. Doesn't have the let's say the big damage output and the big strength as the Fist and the Hammer have. If we take two Helbrute Fists to maximize melee damage, then we have the yellow line. We go from 5 attacks to 6 attacks. But then the best, let's say, all melee configuration seems to be the Helbrute Fist with the Scourge, allows you to do 5 attacks with the Fist and then 3 with the Scourge. You get the light blue curve. So that's basically, that gives a better damage output than 2 Fists. And yeah, it gives you a bit on infantry, a bit more with the Scourge and the vehicles with the Fist. So comparing now a lot of these configurations, the point corrected damage output versus the General Yanis 31 targets. So we have a couple of options here to do the weapons. We have the long range anti-vehicle. We have the twin las cannon with a missile, the MultiMelta with a missile, or the Helbrute plasma with a missile for various points here. We can see the twin las cannon becomes the most expensive option. We have also a longer range anti-infantry shooting, the twin heavy bolter and the missile launcher here for 125 points. We can make a mixed configuration where we take, for example, MultiMelta and the Fist, MultiMelta with Fist adding a flamer on the Fist, or MultiMelta and Fist adding the combi bolter on the Fist. And we can do a melee only configuration with the Fist and the Power Scourge, for example. But remember, the Helbrute is only a 6-inch move, so it could be less useful, let's say, if you have the melee only compared to a shooty or mixed version. But here we can see all these configurations here and their damage output. From the shooty configurations here, we see that the MultiMelta and the missile at 24-inch, it's quite equal to the plasma and the twin heavy bolter. As we saw, the twin heavy bolter is more efficient versus infantry, while the other options are better against vehicles. The advantage of the MultiMelta becomes apparent at 12-inch, where we have the d6+2 damage, and in melee, here we are lacking a melee weapon. We just have the base Helbrute melee attack. We are doing some damage, but it's not super good. In point blank, we can do some damage shooting the weapons, but we will be at -1 to hit on the weapons, and we can't shoot the blast weapons here. Then if we go to and here we just have the point blank and melee, short range and melee damage output. But I think from the shooting configurations, the MultiMelta and the missile seems to be the overall best shooting option. If you want to have a bit better range, then probably the Helbrute plasma and the missile are the better option and a bit cheaper. If we look at all-rounder, let's say a mixed, both MultiMelta and the Fist with added weapons. Here we have the damage output, and we see now with the Fist we have a quite high melee damage output. And if we add the flamer, we add more shooting at short range, could be interesting. We are also adding a lot in the point blank with the auto hit flamer. It allows us also to overshoot. The combi bolter gives us a little bit more in long range. On short range, it's also okay. We get 4 shots with the combi bolter. The melee damage output here, and because it's cheaper, and so here I think all these configurations could be quite valuable. The MultiMelta and the Fist, the extra weapon, if you can afford it, they doesn't have a penalty to shoot with the flamer and the combi bolter being rapid fire in point blank range. The Fist and Scourge doesn't have, of course, any shooting damage output. It has a higher melee damage output, but as I said, remember the Helbrute is slow. It cannot be, let's say, it's not so easy to teleport it with duplicity spells or the temporal, the new warp time, let's say. Then, having looked at the damage output, let's look at the durability. This is not point corrected. This is the number of shots it would take to take out the Helbrute here. Here we are comparing to the Forge Fiend and Mauler Fiend I reviewed last week, and here is also comparing to a Contemptor Dreadnought. Not point corrected. This is just what it takes to take them out. And here we have the Death Card, some Death Card vehicles, the Death Card Helbrute, which is suffering from no Invul save, the Plaguebearer Scroller, the Defiler, and then Mephitic Blightholder as alternatives here. And we can see that the Helbrute can take quite a lot of heavy weaponry shots. For example, 6 entropy cannon shots, 11 melta gun shots, 6 meltas at half range, and this is much higher than the Death Card Helbrute, which only can take 4 entropy cannon shots, for example. The durability it has here is as good or very close, let's say, to Forge Fiend and Mauler Fiend, even if they have 4 more wounds and they are costing more. So let's say all in all, it has a much improved durability compared to the Death Card Helbrute for heavy weapons. It's quite similar to the Forge Fiend and Mauler Fiend and Contemptor versus heavy weapons. It's a cheaper unit, so if we calculate the durability per point, we can add more wounds to the table, like let's say taking Helbrutes than we are doing with Forge Fiends or Mauler Fiends, and it's a non-degrading, but it lacks the regen that the Forge Fiend and Mauler Fiend would be able to have. So summarizing the damage output and comparing the Dreadnoughts and heavy support of the Thousand Sun and the Death Card, here we have them point corrected. So here we see, let's say, the Helbrutes here with Missile and MultiMelta and Fist, and the Helbrute Fist and Scourge. We see here the damage output as we saw previously. Here we have the point corrected durability, where we are taking, let's say, 9.5 shots on average from the General Yanis anti-vehicle weapons on the previous page to kill 100 points of the unit. And this is, let's say, much higher than Scarab Occult Terminators for heavy weaponry. It's higher than the Forge Fiend and the Mauler Fiend. It's not, of course, as high as a Plaguebearer Scroller, but it's similar actually to the Mephitic Blightholder or the Contemptor per point, at least, because the Helbrute we can make it a cheaper unit. The damage output is quite similar here, let's say, to the Forge Fiend or the Mauler Fiends. The Scarab Occult Terminators as an elite slot with the Soul Reaper and the Missile. They also have a, let's say, they have a high damage output. They have core and objective secure. So of course, everything in the Thousand Sons Codex seems to be suffering in the comparison with the Terminators and the Rubric Marines. But I think the Helbrute could bring something new to the table compared to the Terminators. We have basically a cheaper unit that's a bit more durable versus anti-vehicle or heavy weapon shots that otherwise maybe would target your Terminators, and you can the damage is better versus vehicles. You have the D6 or D6 plus 2 shooting meltas from the Helbrute, where on the Terminators we have mostly damage 1 weapons. A similar durability, as I said, per point as the Death Card fast attack demon engines like the Mephitic Blightholder and the Mower. Better, definitely better than the Death Card Helbrute point durability. Then, of course, the Helbrute has the core keyword, and therefore we can buff the damage output quite considerably. As a core unit, it can benefit from reroll once to hit aura from, for example, Ahriman or let's say the Exalted Sorcerer. As we saw with a Frenzy, it can reroll once to wound if it becomes damaged. We have the Malefic Maelstrom Pact from the Eternal Master for we can give it +1 strength to the ranged weapons. Of course, if we are having glass cannons or multi-meltas with very high strength, it's maybe not benefiting so much as for example, the Twin Heavy Bolter or some of the lower strength weapons. We can use the Ensorcelled Infusion strat in the shooting phase, then we can improve the AP by 1 if we are within 6 inches of a Psyker. Again, not so much a help for multi-meltas that have very high AP. It could help, let's say, that if you have the Fist with a Flamer on it or something like this. We have the Presage Psychic Power, Warp 7, giving +1 to hit, so then you will be hitting on 2s. Then Swelled by the Warp for melee damage output. Psychic Power can give it +2 strength and +1 attack. And here we can see the effects of the damage output. If we give it, let's say here we see the baseline shooting damage output, and here we see the max buffed shooting when we give it +1 to hit. From the Presage, reroll once to hit, and once to wound from Frenzy. We give it the -1 AP and the +1 strength from the Infernal Master. And here we see, for example, from the MultiMelta and Missile, we go from damage, let's say 2 wounds on average versus the General Yanis targets for 100 points to 3.7 with a max shooting. So we can increase the damage output by, let's say, 80%. The Twin Heavy Bolter is the one that is benefiting the most here from the AP and the more strength, for example. Here we can buff it more in percentage points going up. And here the multi-melta with the Fist, and if we have the Flamer and the Combi Bolter, let's say on the Fist, we also get, let's say, 80-90% improvement. So the shooting damage increase with all these buffs, it can make basically double the damage. It's the highest impact for the Twin Heavy Bolter that benefits from the strength and the AP much more than the multi-melta, for example. Overall, there is less buffing possible than the Death Card equivalent. The Death Card, we have the Talisman with the Tollkeeper, we have the Fire Fever Stratagem, we have a bit more buffing possibilities for the Helbrute damage output. But it's not close, let's say, to the Contemptor. The Contemptor, a buffed Contemptor can do for Death Card almost 10 wounds on average here. For the melee damage output, if we have the max, the baseline and the max buffed, here we have one Fist, here we have the Fist and the Scourge. The max buffed melee would be +1 to hit, reroll once to hit and once to wound from the Frenzy, and then we give it the Swelled by the Warp, +2 strength, +1 attack. We can increase the damage output by 100%, so 2 times, double the damage output in melee with the buffs. For Death Card, we also have better possibilities, I think, to buff. The Haze of Corruption stratagem allows to allocate all the damage, for example, from the Fist on a horde type of enemy. There is no option for that in the Thousand Sons Codex, but still some good buffs can be performed. And then finally, let's look at ways to buff the Thousand Sons Helbrute durability. Already, as I showed you, the Helbrute has a good durability with her heavy weapons. We can give it the biomechanical mutation. We can use this stratagem in any phase, and we can get a 5+ protection versus mortal wounds. The Weaver of Fate's psychic power can give it a 4+ invul like any other Thousand Sons unit, so maybe you want to use it on your Terminators, for example. And Glamour of Ginge can give it a -1 to be hit. And the Death Guard Helbrutes are even more envious now that even with 5+, it could get a 4+ invul, while the Helbrutes on Death Guard, they are not so resilient. So, reaching to the summary and final thoughts of this extensive analysis, I think the Thousand Sons Helbrute has the important invul save, making it an interesting choice, and it's something that the Death Guard equivalent doesn't have, making it a less interesting option. I think it's a quite cheap vehicle, a core unit. You can get it for 115 to 140 points. It can be configured with a large variety of weapons regarding of what you want to do, like a MultiMelta Missile as a gun platform, the MultiMelta Fist as an all-rounder, the Fist and Scourge as a melee specialist. But remember, it's quite slow, so I would probably go with one of those options up here. Yeah, as a core unit, the Thousand Sons can buff it to get 120% damage increase, as I showed you in the previous couple of slides. The point durability is good versus heavy weapons, comparable to a Mephitic Blight Holder or a Fitted Blight Drone from Death Guard, better per point than the Forge Fiend and Mauler Fiend options in the Thousand Sons Codex. The main question is, can it compete with Scarab Occult Terminators? I think it could earn its spot. It's more an anti-vehicle shooty option if you equip it, for example, with a MultiMelta and or the missile or the fist. It's a cheaper cost as a minimum unit. You can pay 115, 120 points to bring a 5-man Scarab Occult Terminators. You need at least 200 points, and you can do a higher damage output in melee if you use the MultiMelta and the Fist. So, of course, Scarab Occult Terminators are a very good unit, but I think the Helbrute could have a chance earning a spot in some lists, bringing some anti-vehicle damage output. So, with these words, this concludes the video. What do you think about the Thousand Sons Helbrute as a Death Guard player? What do you think about the Death Guard, let's say, Helbrute compared to a Thousand Son Helbrute? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please press like and subscribe to my channel, where I will be bringing you more videos for Death Guard, Warhammer 40k, Mathhammer, and looking more and more into Thousand Sons units as well. Please subscribe and yeah, help the channel grow. If you want to further support my efforts, please visit my Patreon page, patreon.com General Yanis. Take part of the discussion there. And with these words, General Yanis is signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.